Best animated movie of 2024? Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we're here with my blind reaction to Flow. This is a donation reward as always. And yeah, this is for a movie that apparently won Best Animated Picture. I don't understand why. Because I'm not like 100% blind on this. Because I know what it is. I know that this is a movie about a cat. I know there's no dialogue. I believe it's French made. And it's an independent film. And you just follow the cat around. And somehow a movie like that won Best Animated Feature over The Wild Robot. Like, I mean, it's all subjective, obviously, and, you know, award shows are rigged to hell as it is, so I'd say it doesn't really matter, but unfortunately it does because, you know, the movie industry likes to just really pump themselves up by pretending that this isn't all like paid and bought for, like to hell and back. Because the funny thing is, to even be nominated, you basically have to campaign. You have to pay to campaign just to be nominated. And even then, like the instant the nominations are set, the winner is decided right there. And it's based on pretty much nothing other than what the judges, the council, whatever, the people who decide everything in the first place, the nominations included, it's just what they want to win. Unfortunately, again, though, Hollywood likes to pat itself on the back, and so they act like it means something, even though really it doesn't. Because they're deciding it anyway. And even with like the likes of supposed fan voted award shows, People's Choice, etc., they're not actually People's Choice. The organizers like rig the voting so much. It's like, oh yeah, people will vote, but if the organizers want something specific to win, they're going to stack the votes in their favor. They're going to hire people to vote just to make sure their choice wins. It's ridiculous. But in the end, I choose to judge films, games, shows, anything I not only react to, play through on the gaming channel, watch on my own time. I tend to judge things based on their own merits, in my opinion, of course, because it is all subjective. I will watch the film, just like I watch anything, and judge it purely on what I think of it, on how it does or does not appeal to me based on my interests and sensibilities with film, with entertainment in general. And if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. Now, I'm not opposed to movies that don't have dialogue, but nothing about this sounds interesting. You're just following a cat around nature and whatnot. It's like, why would I care about that? And maybe that's just me. Admittedly, that could just be my view on it. I just don't find this kind of thing entertaining. But that's by concept. Like I said, I haven't seen this, so I don't know exactly what to expect. I don't know if I don't know if I might end up being surprised by this or not. I know a lot of people like generally seem to like it, like outside of just, it winning awards and stuff. But I also don't tend to always agree with viewer critiques. I I can have some unpopular opinions sometimes. And I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm not afraid to admit stuff like, "Oh, I didn't think The Godfather was all that good." Or I think that the 2016 Suicide Squad is a fantastic film. Or Batman v Superman is a fantastic film. Or the original cut of the Justice League movie is a fantastic film. I'm not afraid to say stuff like this because it's my opinion. I'm entitled to it, and my opinion is just as valid as anyone's. And so I'm going to be very open about my opinion, even if if it goes against what other people say. And the reason I'm going through all of this here is because I want to give you guys fair warning in case you really love this film. I might not. I want to give you fair warning that it's very possible. Rather than having you be blindsided by my sudden dislike for it. But, like I said, I could end up loving it. This could end up proving me wrong. That has happened before. I have been proven wrong on various things I've reacted to. And honestly, I've said it before, I'll say it again, that is the biggest compliment I can pretty much give to a piece of media. Because it proving me wrong is what I want it to do. I want a show or a movie or a YouTube thing or whatever else to prove me wrong because it means that I'll have discovered something or someone will have helped me discover something that I otherwise would have never been interested in checking out for one reason or another. And so, when I'm wrong, it means I can enjoy something as well. And it's just always good to be able to enjoy something. So hopefully, we end up getting a good film here that does prove me wrong and is able to make me understand what other people see in this film. That is the hope. That is the wish. So all of that being said, we're gonna get into this, hope for the best, and see what this film has in store. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So apparently there was a post-credit scene. It just showed the whale emerging from the water, so I guess the whale survived. I guess somehow the water levels rose again high enough, despite even that fissure in the earth, that the whale was able to get back into the water and survive. So this is the movie that won Best Animated Feature. That beat out The Wild Robot. And I specifically am saying The Wild Robot because, let's be honest, that's the one it beat out. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad movie. It's extremely well animated. It has a story and everything. But it's like, I think I'd say it's a 7 out of 10 at best. Maybe a 7.5 if you really, really want to be generous. It's like, there's just not enough to this. And maybe it's me, and I know part of this is definitely going to be me, but it's like I was just left like confused by certain things. Why did the animals know how to steer a boat? Like from everything we can tell, these are supposed to be real animals, right? In a realistic Earth that is, mind you, post-apocalyptic, seemingly, but they're real animals, and they're very, very clearly supposed to act like real animals. So how are they smart enough to steer a boat, or to, have the clearly the kind of emotions and connections that they had in this? Animals are not that smart. Most animals. There are some, but like a cat and a dog, absolutely not. That dog would have absolutely gone after the rabbit like the other ones. The cat would have never stuck around with this group in the first place. This shit just wouldn't have happened. And it's like you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but then there's like other questions that just like I'm more interested in than the cat's and its friends' journeys. Why is there giant cat statues? What the fuck happened to the secretary bird? By the way, secretary bird is what they are. What the fuck happened to the secretary bird? What the fuck was that scene? Because it's like, it's one thing to have the dream sequence where the cat's dreaming about the deer, like running in like cultish circles around it. That's one thing. But whatever the fuck was going on with on top of that pillar with the secretary bird, it's like, what are we supposed to think that was? Fucking aliens? The bird like ascending to heaven or some shit? What are we supposed to think that was? That felt so actively out of place with the rest of the film. Because the rest of the film kind of, again, paints this as being pretty realistic outside of like having to suspend your disbelief for the way the animals are very clearly hyper intelligent. But it's like that just feels like really off to me. That one scene, it's like, yeah, it was very visually well done. But it also still felt extremely out of place. Because here's the thing. From everything we can tell, if this is a post-apocalyptic world, it is because of global warming. Because of flooding and whatnot, due to glacier melting and everything. From what we can tell, that would be the case, right? So that scene, if that is aliens, why the fuck is that being included? You already have a reason for the post-apocalypse. You don't need to add that in. If it's not aliens, what the fuck is it? Was it like some kind of weird visual representation of the bird dying and the cat like being able to survive still? Because that just doesn't make sense. Like, if they showed the bird was still, like, laying there, like, dead on top of the pillar and everything after that, and it's like, why would the bird have died? It just got its wings broken. I don't think it would have died from that. It was a scene that just makes no sense and is so immersion breaking. Like I said at the beginning of the reaction, or maybe in the pre-thoughts whenever I said it, um, visually stunning animation and just visuals in general can only get you so far, at least for me. Like, just making a film be like visually like great is no replacement for like making sense with the logic of the world for me. I mean, to a degree, it's probably just how I think, how my mind works. When you set forth a certain set of rules and logic within a world, then you have to follow that. Unless, like, you're doing something specifically that is meant to break that. But if you do something that is meant to break that, it needs to be explained as something that is meant to break that. And that's just not what happens here. It just makes no sense for the world that this is clearly taking place in, from the information that we have. Whenever a show or movie like sets forth rules, sets forth like ideas it has to follow, that the series or movie or game kind of rely on, you can't just do something like that with no reason. It breaks immersion. Again, at least for me. If you can like live with it, if you can like handle it fine, okay, cool. But I can't. Also, there's the note that the whale, and from what I looked up, like with the description of the film and everything, the whale apparently is mutated. So what the fuck is that supposed to mean? I was wondering why the whale looked so weird and off. Apparently, it's just mutated. I mean, I guess that could come into play from like humanity having like fucked up the planet and, you know, dumped a bunch of like toxic waste or shit into the ocean. That I guess can still be explained with the entire like the ecosystem based message for this film, but at the same time, it's just it feels like they threw in some weird ideas just because they could. I mean, the whale is not as immersion breaking as the weird alien abduction bullshit, whatever the fuck that was. That was definitely worse. But the whale thing was also very weird and didn't feel like it quite fit. It's like it can be explained a little bit, but like the story that was going down, it's like was pretty bare basics, but with a film like this, it wasn't trying to be anything more. It was just trying to be like a cat and some other animals trying to survive. That's pretty much the film in a nutshell. And it's like, okay, why should I be invested in that? And there will be some people who say like, oh, but because it's a cat, it's like, okay, why should I be invested? You're just saying because it's a cat. It's like, I don't know this cat. I have no reason to be invested in this cat. The movie didn't really give me much of anything to like really like get hooked into. Like none of the tension ever bothered me because it's very clear this isn't the kind of movie that's going to kill off the animals unless again that's what happened with the secretary bird, but the fuck knows, because there was never any kind of like understanding to that scene. So I don't even know what the fuck that was supposed to be. But I never had any worries about the cat, the lemur, the capybara, the dog, like at all, in any way, shape, or form. I never felt like stressed or concerned. I never felt like they were in any like real danger. because the movie didn't really do anything to make it feel like they were. Like, oh, the cat falls into the water or stuff, or falls off the mast, or whatever. It's like, okay, I don't know how to express it anymore though. That's the thing. I'm not always the great at wording things and expressing like what I mean with this kind of stuff, but I just don't feel like I was ever worried. And on top of that, the lack of understanding of anything that's really happening. Again, that might just be me, but that does affect my ability to get invested in the film. I wanted to be more invested than I was, but I just couldn't be. Nothing about it was like really that like intense or exciting or got me like to really feel like I was in with this journey and everything. Like there are some movies that get me invested to the point where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm in the movie. I'm like going right alongside the main characters in their journeys or their action or drama or whatever. But with this, it's like, no, I felt like I was watching a movie the whole time. It never once felt like I was in the film, like I was going along with it. And yeah, I just, like I said, it's not bad by any means. A 7 to 7.5 is really good. It's genuinely a good score. And that's just, mind you, off the top of my head, of course, but still, that's still a very good score. But this is not better in any way, shape, or form than The Wild Robot. Like, The Wild Robot made me cry many times, actually. This, no, I'm not. I wasn't. I couldn't get invested enough to cry. I didn't care about the characters in this enough to cry. So it's like, no. And I know there's other metrics to measure things on besides just does this movie make me cry. But it's like the story, the pacing, the writing, everything was better in that, in my opinion. It's all subjective, yes. And if you liked Flow better, that's fine. It's your opinion and you're entitled to it, and it's just as valid as mine. But, I mean, I've said this with other things before and whatnot. Doesn't mean I have to agree. I'm allowed to have my own opinion as well. I'm allowed to have, like, my views on it, and that's just as valid as yours. So, I'm very curious, very interested to see how this ends up going. In terms of, like, the overall, like, views on this film, I'm interested to see how it evolves as time goes on. Will it continue to be, like, praised and lauded as this, like, insanely amazing film? Or will people cool down on it a lot more and start to, like, not necessarily see issues with it, but just kind of, like, maybe acknowledge it, they don't think it's as good as they initially did. I'm genuinely curious because this movie, I could see going either way. I could see this film being one of those where it's like people just adore the shit out of it and will continue to do so because it's something they liked and there's no reason to, like, lose that, for lack of a better way to put it. But I could also see it just being something that kind of just fades in popularity over time and just stops being as big as it is. But either way, yeah, I still liked the visuals of it. Um, the sound design was great. Just audio work in general, the music choices, all of that was good. And I mean, I it kept my attention enough. Like, even if it didn't invest me, like I was I wasn't having a hard time watching it. It's just not a movie I would write home about, you know? It's not one of those films that I would like geek out over. I just feel like I've seen so many better animated films in recent years, but just a lot of better films in general. And it kind of comes down to, do I think this deserved to win that award and probably plenty of others? Personally, no. And I'm not saying that in any negative like intent. I'm not saying that to be like rude or mean towards the creators or anything. I just don't think it was that good when other movies have been like, passed by for awards that I feel like they've genuinely deserved. I don't think this movie like was, animated film of the year material. I genuinely don't. A 7 to 7.5 out of 10 film I don't think is worthy of that. But like, if you remember my thoughts on The Wild Robot, like that's one of the only films like out there that I consider perfect. Like, not just a 10 out of 10, but perfect 10 out of 10. I I have like I've seen it like at this point probably just under a dozen times. And honestly, it gets better with each rewatch. That movie I feel did deserve it. But like I said, it's all subjective. So any and all opinions on it are just as valid as any others. If you think this movie did deserve the awards and everything, cool. But I like I said in the pre-thoughts, I that's why I was like preparing you for the fact that my thoughts tend to not always be um not always tend to go along with the popular thoughts. But just bear in mind, I don't think this movie is bad. I don't even think it's like as low as mediocre. I do genuinely really like this film. I just don't think it's as good as people are saying. I think that people are over exaggerating it. And I'm allowed to think that. And it's just my opinion. Um, but yeah, it's there's just certain aspects that I just don't think worked or made sense. Certain things that I would have rather liked to learn about a lot more of the lore about what the fuck was happening with the world. Why was the water levels rising that high? Why did a giant like fissure just open up on the earth and drain all that water? Why was the whale mutated? Why were there giant fucking cat statues? That's the stuff I would have rather seen this movie dedicate itself to. That's the stuff that I was the most invested in. The stuff I was most interested in. The cat's journey, it's like, eh. I didn't really care that much. I'm just being honest. Because I knew how it would end, and it didn't catch me off guard in any way, except the fucking secretary bird scene. That's the only part of this that caught me off guard. And I just don't know what the fuck happened. Like, even when I looked up, like, the description of, like, each moment in the film and everything, it's like, even that just said, oh, something happens, basically. It's like, oh, this bright light appears in the sky, the secretary bird is pulled into it, the cat ends up staying. That's all it says, because it's like, no one knows what the fuck happened. I wouldn't be surprised if the creators didn't have an explanation for that. If it was just something cool they decided to put in with no explanation, I would not be surprised. And like I said, that's not my thing. That's just not my thing. I like movies that focus on the characters in the story, that give us good lore, that really develop things a lot better. I don't I don't always like it when movies just like throw a bunch of random shit at you just cuz it looks pretty. I I I I can admit when it looks pretty. I can admit when it looks like it's really well animated or whatnot. Or in the case of live action, just really well, choreographed and choreographed is the wrong word. Um, really well directed and set up and everything. You know what I mean. I can't word right now. But it's like this I just feel like I'm kind of left disappointed by, if I'm being completely honest. It's just not doing it for me as much as it clearly has for other people. So, while I did really enjoy this, I do think it is overrated personally. Um, but it was absolutely worth the watch still. I'm glad I checked it out. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Just please try to be nice. Don't be an asshole. Just because I didn't like this. Or didn't like this as much. Again, specifying that. I did like it. But let me know your thoughts down below. And for now, thank you so much for tuning in as always. And yeah, um, for now, I'm Connie. I'm signing off. See y'all next time.